Welcome to this Padel. Today we have a very special guest. I've been trying to have him here for a little time, and I think he's coming at the right timing because we have LuisFer Ramírez, Luis Fernando Ramírez. He came to the US as a tennis player for college, so high level, and now he's the national male team coach or head coach. Right. So he's the national head coach male team for the USA. And welcome.
Thank you, Rosa, for having me. And I know we've been back and forward, but finally we're here. And like you say, it's good momentum right now.
I think so. Yeah. I'm very happy to have you here. First of all, I would like to know a little bit more about you. Okay. Your trip or your journey from Venezuela to the US. Okay. How was that? And how was your racket games experience, racket sports experience? Not just tennis, but how you had exposure to all this?
Well, my life has always been surrounded by tennis. Like you said, tennis, it's been my passion, my everything. I came to the United States when I was 18 years old to play Division I in New Mexico State University. Over there, the experience was amazing. I had so much fun, and I got to grow as a human, actually, being alone for the first time out of my home country, Venezuela. I spent there 4.5 years with great results in tennis and academically also, and that led me to have an opportunity to give it a shot in the professional tour. Mm-hmm. I played for 3 years in the ATP tour. I had some support from my family, from the country, and that led me to be able to apply here for a EV visa or EV green card, and I got awarded with it, and that was when I stopped playing tennis. I decided to stay here full time right away.
But let me stop here, because for someone that watches it like from the outside, like, okay, a visa, but this is what they call here like the genius visa or the Einstein visa, like reserved for Nobel Prize, like people that can prove that they have a high level,
a special talent,
that is outstanding.
Yeah, no, I'm honored, to be awarded. There's so many people that want to come to this country, great country. I recently got to be awarded as a citizen too. It was a couple of weeks ago. So I love this country, and giving me the opportunity and showing that I had, the special talent in the racket world, and being right now, a part of the national team in paddle, which is something that I never expected when that happened. But, it shows that I had the passion and the background to be able to continue to follow a good path here in the States.
Excellent. So you came to the US because of tennis.
Yes.
And now you're having a key role in expanding paddle.
Yes.
How did you discover paddle?
Well, paddle got to me in 2018. I stopped playing professional tennis in 2015. I opened up a tennis academy here in Miami early 2016, which had great results. But in the middle of the way, a couple of friends invited me to play paddle in Real Padel with my good old friend Angelito, who was our first coach. And right away, I got, hooked in the game because I felt a space where I could compete again, and had that fire on me again. I quickly started playing in the USPA circuit and got into it. Another factor that helped me, got involved was that Venezuela, my home country, where I have a lot of friends, got into paddle at the same momentum. It was at the same time, sorry. And so the momentum was there. My friends were competing. They wanted to be better than me. I wanted to be better than them. And then the first national team of Venezuela came up. We played a friendly match here in the States against the U.S., and that was in Texas. And I got called for that one. And the experience was amazing. That's where I got to know most of the people from the U.S. It was actually my first official tournament, let's say it. And I had to play against Nico Agritelli, his brother Will, that now are part of my team, So it's how, the world is round. And
it was like reverse scouting. Now they're in the team. At that point, you were like the Vino Tinto for paddle,
That's correct. And now they're great friends of mine, apart that they're, players of the team. They're great friends, great people. And like them, I got to meet, so many good people that led me to be a part of the United States Paddle Association as a committee member. That was back in 2022. I started working there, helping, great people like Scott and all the participants in the association. But we were really small, We were not ready to all the...
I think it is, yeah. Like people think about USPA, great, but it's still mostly volunteering and
100%,
like
yeah.
giving to paddle more than...
It's based on people's passion and free effort, and their time to make this as structured and as well governed as possible. Right now, we are a base of only volunteers, but we have grown from having, 20, 30. Right now, we're over 100, and I would say that 80% are purely American and a lot of good people, integrating the association, and I have great hope for what we can do going forward.
Yes, and one thing that I wanted to ask you is, you've seen that momentum in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are growing like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see the growth of paddle in the US right now? Not just for the talent, that I think is for you a challenge, like to pick the people, but also how it's growing, the amount of clubs that we see every week, every moment, like more people getting into that.
Yeah, it's a great question, because right now we're sitting in Miami. Miami is like the godfather now of the sport. But what happens is that it can confuse you, easily. Here, everyone right now knows we are mostly a Hispanic town, so people kind of knew the sport and has seen in their countries how it has developed. So that's why we get so much investments, and now the city in the building department knows what they're dealing with and how to deal with it. Then when you go outside of Miami, apart from places in California, mostly Texas, apart from that, people don't know the sport. So it's still yet, a pitching game. You're pitching paddle in every single, part of the ecosystem. But I think it's going to go along with the great momentum that the racket sport industry as a whole is having. So I think paddle is going to integrate extremely well with pickleball and tennis, especially because the people, as soon as they try the sport, they get hooked, and it's like a common, theme when you go and you introduce the sport to someone that comes, especially with some knowledge of racket sports. But I would say that mostly everyone, they get hooked, and I think it's a great sport, and that's the reason why it has grown overseas and globally so much. Right now, there are over 90 federations that are part of the FIP, which is a big governing body of the sport, and we are a part of the FIP from the association. I think the growth is gonna continue. Now we need to focus more on how we are investing, and probably we're gonna jump into that later. But I think if we do it right and people continue to jump in, the growth it won't stop. And you're seeing not just some clubs opening up, you're seeing a bunch of clubs opening up, and a lot of different companies, integrating too, in the technology side, in the coaching side, in the manufacturing side, because you have many different courts available now, and different brands that are putting their product in the States. And I think it's a no comeback time, but we need to do it right. So
you come from tennis.
Yeah.
You like all racket sports.
Yeah.
What do you think makes paddle different?
There is that sense that paddle is a little bit easier than tennis in terms of how do you learn how to play, and in order to increase your level and to compete at a high level too, you kind of know when the match is going to start and when it's going to end. It's a really fun and smaller environment, and you're always playing with a teammate. You're never alone. You never feel like you're alone in the world playing against the world. No, you always have at least one person that's by your side, and that gives you that sense of of friendship,
but they put caritas too, right?
It happens, you gotta get rid of that partner then, Rosa. But yeah, I think paddle has that sense of community that people like a lot, and then it's a little harder than pickleball too, for example, which is the other competitor that we have out there. So it requires a little more fitness from that sport, but I think it has that differentiation that people tend to like a lot.
I think so. And you were talking about business.
Yes.
I think right now, and you know this very well, it's a real estate business to start, or business, or let's say the first thing you need to solve is the location plus ceiling, but that's part of location. But then on top of that, you can build a lot of business, interesting buildings. You were talking about technology, about the paddle gear, like brands and all that. How do you envision that ecosystem creation? Because I think right now we are in the foundation time.
Yeah.
And it's important to have like healthy starts in order to make it something that's going to be a good business for different stakeholders.
Well, talking about that side, it's hard to talk about a healthy start when you have a business that has so limited data, to support projections and what you're doing, and so how many people are going to come in and out, how many people are really going to participate. But I think, right now, the push has to be to everyone trying and jumping into and committing to opening up clubs and creating the infrastructure for it to actually be something, Then how do you create a long-lasting, good business out of this? Well, you have to create within your investment, the base of what's going to get you there. If you want to create a good community, for example, in a club, you need to have, the juniors, you need to have the mother, you need to have the father, you need to have the high performance players too. You need to have a community that feels, that's part of it, and you're offering a little more than just a court, So, so that takes obviously hard work and people that know what they're doing, but it's part of any business. And then if we're talking a little longer in time, and let's say we reach a mature level and we have clubs all over America, it's like any other real estate business where, restaurants or multifamilies or buildings, they're competing against each other. And if you find, like you said, the right location, you're doing the right product. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to do it because there is going to be competition everywhere. So it's part of what it's going to require. But right now, the big push has to be towards, creating a lot of infrastructure and trying to interconnect the ecosystem. And I think we from the USPA, but I think every single player plays an important role when creating this.
Following your thought, I think in Spain there was a big crisis that impacted all the economy, and part of that was the industrial side. So we started to have empty warehouses that they changed the licensing and became clubs, and it's been great for the sport, and now it's an indoor sport. I love playing outdoors, but I understand Miami on that. I think we are starting to see an interesting trend here that is, again, finding opportunities in a crisis. There's a big retail crisis, but 100%. We're starting to see in the malls, and I was like, that's smart, because people know where to go. There's parking, there are some other things to do. So how do you see that kind of opportunities?
Look, like I told you previously, we need to go and see who is successful, who is doing things that are right. And I think Pickleball is a great example for us. They have integrated, you mentioned at least 5 outlets or 5 different routes that you can take, Right now, Padel it's super raw. So we have so many opportunities, real estate. This is a super big country, 300 million people, 50 states, and you have opportunities everywhere. So it's a matter of obviously getting the right opportunities. I think the sport, it's better when it's played indoors, at the end of the day. And it's for the business, it's also better because you can project a little easier. But, at the end of the day, it's what requires from the place that you are going. It's not going to be the same what you're going to put in New York than what you're going to put in Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I used to, study. Has to be a different scenario. You're going to be able to charge X amount of money here and there, but at the end of the day, it's trying to read what your demand is going to be, or the people that are going to come play at your club are going to be able to pay, and you're going to provide that for them. It's a great opportunity right now. Like you said, the retail and the industrial sector are having, like most of the real estate industry, a little hold down, let's say it. So there is going to be opportunities. But I talk to a lot of developers and investors, and they tell you, okay, let's buy that land, but why put a paddle club if you can put, a building,
Or Amazon warehouse, right?
Correct.
Like you are competing with some business that are paying very well.
That's 100% there. And so you got to be smart and creative enough to put, these mixed use facilities where you can integrate a lot of things there, and you're going to be able to generate revenue from Padel and integrate it. And another outlet that for me, Raleigh in North Carolina right now, was a great example. They're putting up a 125 million facility of rackets, and it's going to have not just Padel, but pickleball and a lot of tennis. And I think that's going to be the future. You know, if you look into Orlando, what's going on with the USTA over there, they're pushing towards the racket sports industry as a whole a lot. And now, for example, things like the tennis magazine that used to be the tennis magazine, it's called the Racket Sports Industry Magazine. And I think it's because people are demanding that. I see a lot of people that play pickleball, paddle, and tennis in the same week, and I want more of that, you know. So I think that's the future.
I cannot do that. It's like mixing languages. Like tennis is too hard for me, and pickleball, I think I would start mixing things. But I think it's good that people start to have exposure. In fact, we met in Racket X.
Correct.
And I really like that you were staying on the USPA booth most of the time.
Yeah.
So you're like, hey, this guy is not just like sitting on the bench, but also being when it's not that fancy, like being on a booth and explaining and telling people, like onboarding people on paddle.
Yeah.
In an industry that it was like the audience there were a racket sport, right? So that's also picar piedra, like being there and when it's not that cool.
And it's crazy because you would think that you go to Racket X, you know, everyone probably already knows what paddle is, and you go out there and you're representing the governing body of paddle, and they tell you, okay, what's paddle? And you're like, oh, for real. But yeah, for me, you know, when I'm near a racket, I'm happy, you know, so I can be there explaining people, you know, about paddle and about what I think, you know, the future of paddle is going to be, or the right path, you know, to make it right. From my perspective, you know, I could talk paddle for hours, you know, so and Racket X was a great experience too. Yeah.
So one thing that is worrying me a little bit is I went to Spain for 10 weeks. And when I came back, I saw there were many more courts, but in a not expected way, the prices has gone up too. So I don't know if Miami can stand those prices for a long time, if they want people to go recurrently. Or I don't know if clubs have accepted those rents, and then if we cannot pay that, they won't be able to pay that, because that would crash something that is still starting. So I don't know if it's an artificial way to control the prices, but going up instead of low, that would be the logical thing. Or what's going on? Like, I think it's counterintuitive, and I don't know how to read that.
My push in all this, and I think my role at the end of the day, or my dream, is to democratize paddle. I think it's the only way to make it, you know, available for everyone, for the masses. That way you can have the most talent available and be able to actually compete me in the head coach position against other countries that already do that, you know, they massify the sport. The problem right now that we're facing is that we're obviously, if I sit in the investor side, you know, on the owner side, you obviously want to, you know, a return on your investment and what you're putting. So right now the demand and the offer, it's opposite, you know, so there is a time that will match. And like you're saying, price probably will fall down. But right now, I think, you know, the clubs are doing a good job in promoting the sport, you know, and they're attracting people. And right now, the numbers are the numbers. Miami, obviously, it's a tough place to start. It's not like Bolitieri started in Bradenton, you know, and you can have free people there because land was free. Here it's another, you know, you have to pay big rent, but they're putting up the investment, and I'm thankful, you know, with every single owner and investor.
No, they're taking a big risk.
But like you say, you know, our push as a whole, if we want to have actually a step away from the high-end entertainment industry and a little more to the mainstream, we're going to have to get creative in ways to attract people at a lower price.
Yeah, because what worries me is that it becomes a wave that then fades away, and that would damage. Like people have been doing paintball or escape rooms, and then that fades away and goes. So I don't want paddle to be like that.
Or it doesn't go, but it stays small. You know, it stays in a small group of people that tend to. You know, you have a lot of examples of that here
like
in the
a
States.
niche.
You know, you. Squash, for instance, you know, it's a sport that's heavily played in some parts of the States, but it's so hard to build a court and to get participants that they have had a nightmare, you know, getting into the Olympics, for example. Now we talk paddle that might go in the Olympics because there are countries that are creating the spaces for a lot of people to participate and creating, you know, a lot of talent. In Argentina, you see people that play still with concrete blocks, and they do their preseason there, tournaments there, and
they're
why
okay.
not? You know, I throw it out there, but why not try it here in some places? You know, if it's cheaper. I don't know, but getting creative and finding ways to get more people into it is going to beneficiate everyone else.
Yeah, I think so. Now that you were talking about the Olympics, we are in the road to make Paralympics. Before, I think the FIP, the International Padel Federation, is doing a big effort, and they are being more like clear, organized, and how this works. So this year there's a World Cup, but before, and this is very important right now, we are going to have the kind of qualifying for North America, right? Like Canada, the US, and Mexico, and it's going to be played in Mexico. So I've seen that you are like training, I think 2 or 3 times that I see in Instagram, maybe it's even more times a week. How is that role? How is creating a male team, which is the highest, I'm not talking about the seniors or the juniors, but the like general.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I felt I had the opportunity in tennis to represent my country at the Davis Cup, which is similar to what we're going right now, and representing your country or where you're from. It's the highest achievement or award that someone can get, So I'm super excited for what we're going to do right now in Monterrey, in Mexico. I think we have a great chance of getting through. We play against Canada and Mexico, and I feel super confident about my team and the guys that are going there to represent all of us. And I'm pretty hopeful. Then
who are they?
Then they are Nico Agritelli, Fernando Alarcón, JP Arispe, Sebas Castañeda. We have Raulito Ruiz, Radu Ionescu, Mateo Coles, and I think that's it. And
it's very diverse. They're all Americans.
They are,
you need to have the passport, but
that's a great
I like
question.
that they're from many places.
They're from 3 different states right now, but that's a great question. Until last year, we were able to include anyone with a green card in all our national teams. So it was a little bit easier to recruit. Now we have to, since the Panamericanos last year, which was a great achievement from us, we have to have citizens. So having citizens only, obviously, it's a bigger challenge in a sport that's so Hispanic and so full of immigrants. But I think we have a really competitive team in the men's and in the women's side. I was seeing the roster and it looks super strong. And I think we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready to hopefully beat Mexico and Canada and advance to the World Championships. And there I'm super confident that we're going to be doing something historic and that's never done before because we have the talent to make it happen.
I think it's a challenge for you also, like picking, because those that don't are like picked, they are like, why not me? Or so
I wasn't never put into this position, So obviously right now you're breaking some hearts here and there, but I try to let everyone know that I'm following what they're doing. I respect a lot what they're doing. These guys usually are self-funding this, it's out of pure passion, going through the entire country competing. And you have to follow what they're doing. You have to follow their results. And I take this moment to ask, for people to support these guys, because these guys are putting a lot of effort, not just, playing in the court, but outside of the court and making sure they're getting ready. Like you said, we're training 3 or 4 times a week here in Miami as a team, but they're doing that alone the rest of the days. And like you said, the prices are not cheap, So some clubs are supporting these guys, and it's super helpful, but we need more. We need more.
That's super good. Like it's something I think I've seen you in 10x20, and I think they deserve a mention in the way that they are supporting their national team.
And they were super proud to have us, and we were super happy to be there. Because I am a guy that at the end of the day is going to receive advices from many different coaches and people and perspectives. So having that ability to be going from club to club and the directors and the different coaches being able to see the guys and telling me here this and that, I take whatever I think it's positive and I transfer that to the guys, and it's super positive. They need more of that. Like I'm saying, Padel is much more than just being in the court. It takes a lot of financial effort. So hopefully, these guys get the reward
I hope so.
They deserve.
One thing that I think about a lot is, as you were talking about the coaches and all that, is how the sport is developing for people that are just pure amateur, but they want to learn to play. Because here the offer of activities and things to do is huge. So let's say you start playing paddle, you get engaged and you like it and you want to improve, but at some point you keep playing tennis on a paddle court, right? My point is, how do you teach those that are going to teach in order to teach paddle?
Yeah.
To break some myths and create that corpus of coaches that I think is going to be the future.
Yeah. It's hard to integrate because if we take it a little bit farther from that, you're trying to integrate a culture, of a lot of, it was a niche sport in Argentina and Spain mostly, and trying to integrate everything they know about the sport, strategies, tactics, techniques, etc., into the American people fast and make it's not easy, but I think there are companies doing and different clubs doing things to at least making an effort to hire the best coaches that they can. And there are also people like Marcos del Pilar with Padel MBA doing a big effort in certifying, and trying to create a filter to people that want to go and coach in the court, and I think it's a combination of that, at the end of the day. Also, the competition, it's going to demand, for people to be better. So if someone wants to go out there and be Nico Gritelli in a tournament, they're going to have to read the book, you know what I mean? And know what they're doing. Now, it's like that. Before, maybe it wasn't like that, and tennis players like me could squeeze in and get in a final of a tournament just by hitting a bunch of overheads, and big volleys. Now you cannot do that for instance, and you have to train and understand what you're doing. So I think it's a mix of things, in every level, because you play in the worst level or the beginners, the most beginning, and in 2 weeks, if you're not adapting to the lobs and understanding, that person is going to beat you. So it's a self-taught thing, because you have a lot of outlets out there right now. YouTube, you were telling me that you were watching YouTube to that, and people like that. The more curious the people are, the better. But clubs need to do a good job in bringing in good coaches and trying to integrate them which is another tricky thing. Integrate the people from overseas to the culture, to the American culture. So it's a combination.
Super important. And talking about the future, juniors, how do you envision that? Because if it's that expensive, it's difficult that parents pay for the kids to play paddle, right?
Exactly like
so there's people that are over 30 that can afford that and play paddle, but how do you create the future stars, right? So how do you envision that so far?
That's my main concern. At the end of the day, juniors are the base of the building, roots, and if we don't have them in the courts, it's gonna end up being, a thing that's not gonna have solid basis. Right now, again, it's all about the infrastructure, and I repeat on this because it's the only way that we're gonna get to have more people in there. But there are other ways, integrating courts into the school system. You don't need to put it in the universities as NCAA, but you can put it as a sport in middle schools, and in some parts of the country it might work, and then it goes and spreads out the word. I had a report the other day that in Key Biscayne there were more than 90 kids that are already signed up on a weekly basis. For me, that was extremely, good news, because I know they have been doing a good push for years now, and obviously it's a place that people maybe can afford to have their kids in there. But it shows that the kids like it, which is a big test.
They engage,
correct. Even though they have probably all the other options of sports, soccer, tennis, whatever, they decide to join in an academy, 90 of them, and they're having fun. It gives you a good perspective of if we make it happen, and if we put the efforts and sacrifice and go beyond just renting out the court, but offering that, I think it's going to happen. And the USPA right now, we developed a junior development committee. I'm not a part of that committee, but I know there are great people inside there that are going soon enough. You're going to be hearing good things of how to incentivize clubs and offering grants here and there, and the next step has to be obviously a junior calendar. We need to find ways to get these kids to transform from being in a court just for fun to participate in tournaments. It's a challenge, but it's a way to get into for example, the national team, and It's going to happen, but we need to put a bigger effort. I think we're lacking there a little bit as a whole, as a unit, and we need to put a bigger effort.
We need more exposure of Padel itself.
Yeah.
And the team, and how important in order to get sponsors for especially these kids or the absolute team, because this country has something that is great, but it's bad for some things, and it's huge. It's like a continent itself.
It is.
So if kids need to compete, plane tickets is as expensive as going to Madrid or to Mexico. Yeah. So just traveling to compete, if you don't have that support, is something that people cannot afford for the kids, and it makes sense. I'm not asking them to do the effort, but to support them in order for the good of the sport. Yeah. So I think even just doing the USPA until we have like different parts or something that is more mature is very difficult to me.
Imagine if soccer is expensive for most parents, or baseball and these group sports that they tend to spread the costs of everything between the parents, and it's still expensive. Imagine paddle right now. So starting local is going to be our number one goal. Having clubs like Key Biscayne competing against clubs like Reserve and Ultra, it's probably going to be the first step that you're going to see out there at the end. Yeah. But creating those small, maybe a few spaces nationally where you can integrate whomever is playing in Texas, New York, California, and Miami maybe 2-3 times a year, then expands to 6-7 because things get easier. I think that's going to be the way to do it. Obviously, at the beginning, you want to see results. You want to see 35 kids joining in the tournament, but it's not going to happen. You have to start with 8 and then 12 and then 14, and you need to be patient enough to see that growth and be out there to motivate more and more and more and more kids, and especially the parents, that come already and play. Get them to bring their kids somehow, So that's a push that we need to.
I saw in Ultra that they have like small courts. Of course they are not official and all that, but it's cute, and kids like 3-5 years old, they can start playing and being with the glass and passing the net just for fun, but they feel like super mini pros.
They're not official yet, but you'll see. This is my opinion. No one has told me. But that those will be the junior courts at some point.
Yeah, like the mini paddle.
Correct,
or something
and the kids are gonna play the tournaments in those courts, and clubs are gonna require those courts, at some point, because it makes sense. It was like tennis with the balls.
Yeah, the mini tennis.
It came from green. Now we have all the way from green, orange, red balls, and different types of circuits, because it makes it easier on kids and they tend to stay with the game.
Okay. So my last question before you leave is, when are you going to Mexico, and what can we expect, like, to create momentum? How can we help, in fact, like from here?
Well, help, we need a lot of exposure, and especially support. Like I told you, these guys that are going there are athletes that are both in the men's and the women's side that are doing an amazing effort to represent us, not just in there, but year round. They are great examples of athletes and leaders. And you're going to expect a lot of fighting from the USA, like it happened in Mexico. People didn't. Last year in the Panamericanos, people were not expecting that we were going to put up a fight in every single match, and we did, and we are ready to make it happen again. And you're going to expect a team that's going to be ready to win, and I think we're going to make it happen.
Okay, hopefully maybe we can meet after and before you go to Doha, hopefully.
Hopefully. So. I'll be here. I'll promise you. If we win, I'll be back.
Okay, and if you lose too, you're always welcome, but I prefer if the USA
It'll take
win.
longer, but I'll be back too if we lose.
Okay, no, but we are proud of the USA team, whatever it happens, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, and good luck there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.